Aloha everyone, this is Marco from JAKLAR Positive Vibes. We're in the traces of the legends here on Maui, and of course we couldn't leave Maui without talking to one of the biggest legends the sport has ever seen, obviously, which is Robby Naish. Not many words needed, many people know you. Robby, you've been pretty privileged, I guess, to grow up on the island where so many people come to fulfill their dreams, chasing their dreams of getting good in windsurfing and becoming world champion. How did it feel for you?
Actually, I grew up on Oahu in Kailua, which is 2 islands that way from Maui. But it was an amazing place to grow up. I mean, it still is, but back then was really amazing. You know, it was much less crowded. It was really very basic. You know, I went to school barefoot, no slippers. You know, it was beach culture, beach lifestyle. And I was lucky enough to have a family that basically raised us at the beach. My dad was a surfer. He was a Hobie Cat sailor when Hobie Cats came out. When I got into windsurfing in 1974 at 11 years old, my dad shortly after took my board and started learning windsurfing. So then we windsurfed together. So I was really lucky to be raised here. In a place like this where you have 12 months a year, warm, sunshine, nice water, waves to surf. You know, I could go after school, take my surfboard, walk to the beach, go surfing, walk home. So I was very, very lucky. And then, of course, when windsurfing got bigger and bigger and things moved to Maui in the 80s, I started coming here in 81. So right when the sport turned pro, we started having contests on Maui. And started coming here every year after that. I finally bought a house here in like 87. And then I've been living back and forth between the islands since then, full time on Maui now for about 15 years.
And obviously we know that you inspired so many people around the world. Who was your inspiration?
Hard to say. You know, when people ask me when I was younger, oh, who do you look up to? Who are your idols? I didn't really have any. I think life was different then. You know, in television, we had 3 channels growing up, you know, not like now where there's 300 channels. And I was involved with sports that you didn't see on TV. You know, you didn't see surfing on television. There was no internet. So it was different. I didn't look up to like football players and stuff. That wasn't my world. I was into riding my bike and skateboarding and skimboarding and surfing. And then pretty early on windsurfing. And in windsurfing, there weren't idols, you know, the sport was still really new. I grew up with the sport. So as I grew older, I've had a lot of mutual respect for other athletes, you know, guys that are good at what they do and good people and, you know, exemplify positive attitude and sharing the lifestyle. But it kind of came with age. When I was younger, I was just all about riding and I wasn't even looking at other sports. Like I literally didn't follow any other sports. I was just windsurfing. Yeah, I do this other stuff, but I don't really care who's good or, you know, very self-centered, I guess, to a degree. And then as you grow older and you appreciate things differently, like guys like Kelly Slater, you can't not respect and look up to. Even though he's a friend of mine, I've known him since he was about 19. There's an amazing athlete. I'm into Formula One now, so I have a lot of Formula One friends and guys that I'm really like, wow, Sebastian Vettel, for example. He's a good guy. You know, I look up to guys that are not just good athletes, but that also represent their sports well, represent themselves well, that are humble, you know, look people in the eye and talk to them one-on-one, not condescending. So yeah, I have a lot of friends that are athletes that I look up to and guys that I respect from other sports that do amazing things. So I've been lucky in that respect that I've been exposed over all these years to a lot of really cool people that do a lot of really cool things.
Not long after you started windsurfing, obviously you were right at the start, you got into developing, I think 79, your dad, he sort of started up the Nash Hawaii Limited Edition and you got to work with him. How did it go from there? You've obviously been involved with a lot of development, the boards got shorter, there was even foot straps, although you didn't need them, it looked like, because you were jumping without them. The harness, everything came in. How was that sort of period you went through there?
Well, the whole evolution of the sport has been amazing and so much fun. It was fun when the boards were 12 feet long and made out of plastic. It was fun when we made smaller dagger boards so that we could ride little waves. It was fun putting windows in the sails so we could see where we were going. Every little step was a big step in the sport. When the board started getting shorter, the sails started getting, more advanced. And that evolution continued and continued and continued, until today. The steps are smaller now, but they're still advancements. Stuff is still getting better, lighter, faster. So it's been exciting. It's been cool to be part of it from the very beginning and to still be connected to it, not just from the development side, but from the riding side. In my mind, I'm still and have always been a rider, and the business side is secondary. I've never been that guy that just loves to go get in the workshop and tinker. I'd rather take my old board and go ride. And
Because you know what it's good at.
yeah, and it's just I love the feeling. I love being on the water. That's what excites me. So the equipment side I'm doing because I want to ride, not because I love tinkering with gear. Like there's guys that are not very good on the water that spend a lot of time in the workshop, and that's cool. They enjoy that aspect of it, and they don't even sail very good. I really like sailing. And so the equipment part has evolved as part of that. I love the process of developing new gear to go ride. But I don't think I'd love developing the gear if it was just to sell to other people. If I didn't ride it, I wouldn't want to build it. It's part of the process of really understanding what the wind is doing, what the waves are doing, what the water is doing. And then to a degree, also trying to make stuff for other people to get that same feeling. Like, how do I make a board for a 100-kilo guy so he's having the fun that I'm having? He can't ride my board, but I can try to make him stuff that'll give him the feeling like I'm getting from mine. So that whole process is still really fun. It was fun in the old days, and it's still fun today. And especially taking those things and crossing them over into the other sports, like kite surfing, like stand-up paddling, like foiling, like windsurfing. To me, it's all surfing. I'm a surfer, and you get the camps, windsurfing, kite surfing. To me, it's the same thing. They're two awesome ways to enjoy the wind and the water. And some sports are better for some people, and some places are better for windsurfing than for kiting, or kiting for windsurfing. There's no competition for me. They're both awesome. Same with stand-up paddling. It gets people on the water. It gets them that feeling of being on a board. Even if you're just standing on a lake and paddling across with your friends on an inflatable, you're on a surfboard. You're in contact with the water. You're out in nature. To me, it's all good.
And now the foiling came in as well, which sort of attracts even more people, I guess. And there's so many people making it on the water, which is great. 99 was it actually when you, I think, founded Nash Sails? Was that only a matter of time, or is it something like that came along the way? What was the idea behind it, and how are things going at the moment? Yeah,
it was actually the winter of 95, 96 that I started it. And it wasn't through desire. It was actually through necessity. I had been with Gastra Sales for many, 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 many years, and the company got bought and sold as companies often do. And it got sold, and the new owners wanted to go that direction with it. And I was like, I don't want to go there. So what was I going to do? Go to Neil Pride? There were only two big companies back then. It was Gastra and Pride. And it would have been, to me, a farce to go with a different company after all those years. So the only real way was to keep my team together, development team, which was Don Montague, Pete Cabrina, the guys that I've worked with for a long time, and just start our own sail company. So it was very scary. I didn't want to do it. I just wanted to sail. I was still in the World Cup full on. But we did it just to keep the team together. And so we started Nash Sails Hawaii just as a sail brand. And then it slowly grew from there. Because, in 99, we launched our first line of kites. So we were the first company to do inflated kites with the Lake Agno patent. And everybody thought I was crazy. What are you doing? How can you, And of course, look what happened. All the guys that thought I was crazy are now in the business as well. And kite surfing is really big. So the business side kind of grew as our interest in playing with wind and waves grew. When stand-up paddling came along, it was the same thing. Trying to convince my distributors around the world that stand-up paddling was actually something people would want to do. And for years, they're like, no, that's a Maui thing. No one's going to want to do that. And look at it now.
We see it on our home lake as well. Actually, I just opened a substation as well.
Awesome. So you see, it's just kind of come, and the business has grown as our ability to enjoy the wind and waves in different ways has grown. Like foiling, you say now. It's just another way to enjoy different conditions in a different way, get on the water more often. And in the beginning, people thought, no, there's not going to be any market there. And I'm like, no, I think there is a market there. If we make stuff that's easy, accessible, that's not too extreme, that your average guy, that if he can get in the footstraps, he can ride it, then there's a market. And of course now there is.
Over the years, obviously there were some amazing movies about you, The Rip being possibly the most famous one. I think I watched this over and over, I don't know. Now you're working on something new. There's a new documentary coming about. There's a little different take on it. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I did. For years, people were asking me, oh, are you going to do another movie? Let's do a life story. You should write a book. And I'm like, no. I kept pushing it away and pushing it away. And for me, I never wanted to look back. I've always been trying to look forward, even though I'm not the youngest guy in the world. I didn't want to sit down and go, look how great I was. I'm still having too much fun moving forward. And at least in my head, I'm still moving forward. So it took a long time thinking about to say, okay, well, let's do a movie. And Red Bull was really cool in that they, got a lot of patience, coming every year or so, hey, let's do a film. And I go, I don't really have anything I want to do. Another year later, hey, let's do a film. And eventually, I could see that they were serious enough to put, a big enough budget behind it to really potentially do something interesting. So we said, okay, let's do a film. And then it was like, well, what are we going to do? I don't know. The windsurfing? Is it kiting? Is it everything? I don't know. Because I didn't have like a target that I was trying to accomplish with it. So we said, well, let's find a director and let it evolve. And so we looked at a lot of different directors, and we went outside the sporting world in the end and got Joe Berlinger, who's a documentary filmmaker from New York, who's never done a sports film. When you meet him, you're like, wow, how can that guy do a Robby Naish movie? But it was a perfect synergy of two worlds kind of coming together. And he's an absolutely gifted filmmaker. When you see some of the stuff that he's done in his portfolio, it's like, wow. And then we got Poor Boys Production, Johnny DeCesaris and the crew that did the action side, who really knows surf, windsurf, etc., to do the on-water stuff, combined with Joe's crew doing the backstory. And it turned into a really long project. We basically started out going, okay, let's do something searching for the world's longest waves, something I started a few years ago with Red Bull, using stand-up paddling as basically the core, but then obviously bringing all the other sports into it and some history. And what was supposed to be maybe a year or 6-month project turned into almost 5 years, because we started and then I broke my pelvis and I was out of the water for a long time. Started again, I broke my foot, was out of the water for a long time. And in the midst of that, my life had some pretty big changes, and all of that found its way into the film. So it's more than a sports movie. It's kind of a real in-depth look at me and where I came from and where I am right now and where I'm trying to go. And some people are like, wow, I can't believe you like brought that stuff into the film. But I wanted something real, and I didn't just want action porn going, look at me, look at me, look at me, some superficial self-masturbation of my sports abilities. So hopefully it's interesting, hopefully people like it. I think it's going to be a bit unexpected, but hopefully it has an appeal, some insight into where I came from and where I'm going and who I am. And we'll see, maybe everybody hates it. You never know.
Well, we get to find out, I guess. We're very much looking forward to this, because I really like the take on it and making it a little bit different as well. Because as you say, like there's a lot of action porn going on as well. Especially, and we've seen this from you also before. Too. And I think a different take essentially possibly makes it quite nice. Lastly, I want to talk to you a little bit about the current thing. I mean, we have the IWT and PWA, and very great thing to see them here joining for the event, having Mercedes-Benz as a sponsor. What tells us this about the potential of where windsurfing is going again?
Well, I mean, windsurfing's, I like to say sports have cycles, right? And some sports have lots of quick little cycles, generations that come and go really quickly, and other sports have really big trending cycles. Tennis, for example, or golf kind of has big cycles. Windsurfing has had a really big cycle. And I'm not sure it's ever going to be as big as it once was, like in the late 70s, early 80s, where every lake was covered with little sails. But it might be. You know, it's come a long way. It went to high performance, but now it's broadening out again. There's really good light wind stuff. The new windsurfing equipment going into the Olympics is, I think, going to be much more appealing in the future. The new windsurfer class bringing the longboard style back. Really, the classic triangle sail longboard sailing is accessible again. And of course, the high performance side with speed, with slalom, with waves is unbelievable. The level now is at a stage where you can compare it with motocross freestyles, BMX, snowboarding, skateboarding, anything, and it is right there at the top of action sports in terms of what guys are doing. And so it's really appealing as well to young people. And having somebody like Mercedes coming into the sport helps solidify that. They need it, I think. It's really good for the Mercedes brand, which had, I wouldn't say a tired image, but a very conservative, older kind of image, even though they're killing it in Formula One. I think it's really good for them. It was a good move to come into action sports and especially windsurfing. But it's great for windsurfing to get somebody like that putting some focus and some spotlight back on the sport, supporting events like Silt, coming to the Aloha Classic. I mean, I jumped in as a last-minute sponsor with the Aloha Classic doing the live stream because I just think it's great to be there. Knowing that people from around the world are watching that in the middle of the night, watching the heats take place at Oki.
Like we did.
Like we did, is a good thing. So I think the future of windsurfing is looking better now than it's looked in a long time. Like for my brand personally, and it's hard. I'm Robby Naish. I came from windsurfing, 24-time world champion. And windsurfing is this big a percentage of my business. It's hard. I don't make any money in windsurfing from a business standpoint. And it's hard to even justify investing in it because the other sports are just a better business. And now I'm like, fuck it, I'm going full on. We just sponsored 2 new guys again. We're coming back into the World Cup. We're full on into developing gear. We'll be announcing those new riders really soon because it's in our blood. It doesn't have to make business sense. We're going to do it because we want to do it, because we need to keep pushing, and I want to be part of the future of the sport, not just part of the past of the sport. So I'm optimistic. I'm really looking that windsurfing is coming again. There's a lot more young people doing it. Before, all the young people went right to kiting. And it was, you'd go to Kanaha and the average windsurfer was older than me. That's not good for the future of a sport. It's really cool that 60, 70-year-old people are still windsurfing. That is freaking awesome. It's good for them. It's good. But you also need 15, 20, 30-year-olds doing it. And now we're getting that again. And so, yeah, I'm optimistic.
Okay, that sounds really good and interesting, and obviously we're looking forward to that as well. There's a lot of young guys coming up and hopefully take on the sport to the next level and killing it. Robby, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. We could talk possibly for many more hours, but yeah, just before you go, I've got a little present for you here for your car, or maybe one of your cars. Something to hang in there.
Yeah, one of them. Got lots of cars.
Lots of cars.
I think I'll put that in the Volkswagen bus.
Cool, man. Thank you very much again, and thanks for the invite to your home. This is JAKLAR Positive Vibes. We're in the traces of the legends. We're signing out for now, and we see you soon.
JAKLAR.
JAKLAR.